from this beautiful railway junction here. So today what are we going to talk about? We will be talking about how to use questions in as a way of making introductions. How do we use questions in the in making introductions? And so without much ado, let's jump right into it. So questions are a very effective way of good morning. Yeah. Questions are a very effective way of making introductions, and the reason why it's so effective is because it shifts the attention and the pressure from the speaker onto the audience or the listeners. So you meet a person for the first time, you introduce your name, you say your name, and you ask for the person's name. Then you move on to ask a question. What this does is that it shifts the pressure from you to the person, and now it is the person that has to talk. Why? Because you have asked a question which he has to answer. So this is how the trick works essentially. And so therefore, to be able to use question, one must understand the objective, and then can he know what type of questions or what information to solicit in the question. So let's go right ahead and jump into the types of questions that we can ask in order to introduce our topic. So first, we ask the question of a rhetorical ponder question. A rhetorical ponder question basically is a rhetorical question, as the name implies. And a rhetorical question is meant to let your listeners, your audience, to think about something, to bring a subject, a concern, a topic on the minds of your audience. It is, as the name implies, this is not a question that is asked to be answered. So before you meet a group of people who are managers, you're supposed to do a sales presentation to them, and you begin by asking them a question. Do you think is it possible? Or you could ask, um, what would it be like? Or is it not nice to have an investment whereby in the at the end of the period you could get a double return? Wouldn't it be nice? So of course the answer to that question is a yes. But the point is, you're not asking a question just for your listeners to answer yes or no. You're asking the question for them to imagine, to think about. So it's the same as starting a conversation with an imagined statement. Imagine you being in the sea. Imagine you floating on the in the clouds. Just an imagined question. So you ask the person, would it not be nice for you to be floating in the clouds? So that's a question which is meant to be pondered over. And so when you begin your presentation and you ask that question, your listeners or your audience will begin to imagine in their minds what you're talking about. They will begin to think about what you are talking about. Okay? And that's why it's important. So, in that way, you now begin a subject with your audience together. You have a subject to think about because you put something on their mind. You have removed all that they were thinking about and put something that you want them to think about on their mind. So that's a rhetorical ponder question. Second question you can also ask is the second question which you can also ask to begin your presentation could be a knowledge test question. And a knowledge test question is a question which is meant to test the knowledge of your listeners. So if they know the answer, well, then you're screwed. No, you're not. If they know the answer to the question, then it would depend. They will still pay attention because they want to know whether you have um, extra additional information or details that they don't know about. So they'll still be paying attention. But here's the trick. If they don't know the answer, then they want to know the answer. They will want to know the answer. And so that is where you now come in as a speaker. So you ask a question. Do you know the current president of the United States? Do you know the 30th president of the United States, what his name was? If you had to calculate the probability of surviving from a fall from a 30-story building, what would be your answer? So these are questions that test the knowledge of your listeners and your audience. It's also effective just like any other introduction. It allows your audience to think about the subject which is on hand. So it's also effective. Then the last one is the optional question. If you had to choose between a red and a white suit, which would be your option? Which would you choose? Between Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, which president would you vote for? So these are option questions you can use to start your presentation. They are all effective and they work just good when you're making your introduction. So you can use them as well. So use questions when you want to draw the pressure away from you. That is the most effective thing you can do to draw away the pressure from you. Especially when the audience you're talking to do not know you well and you don't know them well. So you use the question and then you then take the pressure off yourself and put it on the audience. This is the most effective way of starting, reducing pressure on yourself. Thank you guys. See you next time. Hope that you subscribe to my channel and please share to others so that they can benefit from this audience. See you next time. Bye.